All right, welcome to Spoiler Kings. My name is Stink Kramer with Brandman Brandon, Brian the Grizzly, and we're going to talk and review the another blockbuster weekend movie that we all saw, Gladiator 2, with Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn, Paul Mescal. Yep, we got the sequel, Ridley Scott sequel to the masterpiece of the original Gladiator. And it's what been like 30 years later, like almost 30 years later, something like that. 24
years later.
Damn. Yeah. So 24 years later. So we're gonna get into our likes, our dislikes, our review at the end. And if you are in the live chat, you guys let us know your thoughts in the comment section. We're gonna get to those towards the end of the review. And if you are watching this on the replay, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we really appreciate you guys coming in, checking out us talk about Gladiator. But with all that being said, Brian, you have a breakdown of what this movie's about?
Let's go. Years after witnessing the death of Maximus at the hands of his uncle Lucius, must enter the Colosseum after a powerful emperors of Rome conquer his home. With rage in his heart and the future of his empire at stake, he looks at to the past to find the strength and honor he needs to return to glory of Rome to his people.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll get into more details, I'm sure, as it goes. So full spoiler, we're going to talk about everything. So if you haven't seen the movie, pause it, come back, and let's talk spoilers. Brandman, what are some things you liked about Gladiator 2?
All right, don't worry, I'm going to be as fair as I can to this movie. I wrote notes.
Nice. Okay.
From an acting standpoint, it was fine. I thought Paul Mescal did absolutely fine as the lead as Lucius. Thought his acting was absolutely fine. You can always count on Denzel to bring in a good performance. Connie Nielsen, by the way, she's aged all of like 2 minutes since 2000.
Yeah.
So I thought she was fine. Pedro Pascal did his Pedro Pascal thing. I really like the costuming, the set design. Ridley Scott directed it, so I wasn't worried about that at all. I actually was pretty fond of like a lot of the smaller, like kind of one-on-one, hand-to-hand fight scenes. I thought those were the better ones in the movie. I thought it was just the right runtime, and it paid enough respect to its predecessor. More on that later. But I think those were the big things for me.
Okay. What about you, Brian?
Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington. Those are the real standouts about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
In a movie that's really big idea, they were the big standouts. I mean, there's nothing that I saw that shocked me. If there was something that was going to shock me, it was because Denzel did it.
Mm-hmm.
It was because Paul Mescal really showed his acting chops and really did a good job with that. I love the beginning of the story, where he went with his relationship with his wife. All those things were really important to me, I think. And then the idea of even after he was with in his land, going back to Rome, what's his name? Jabartha told him, remember who you are. Remember who you were when you got here. Remember who you became. Don't ever forget that. And then somehow he was able to merge those two people to who he became at the end. I thought that was good. And that it was overall, it was a good movie. But it's hard to compare to the first one. As long as you don't compare it, then you're gonna be okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's right off the bat, so it's so hard to compare it to a masterpiece. You know what I mean? Like and I'm not even being like sarcastic when I say masterpiece. Gladiator 1 is in like almost everyone's top 100 list, somewhere in there, usually the top half, somewhere in there. So but I feel like enough time has passed where you like okay, like let's see what you can do next. Like you guys said, all the main three actors, all great. The ones that really stood out for me, I didn't know I was going to enjoy him as much, was Joseph Quinn and Fred was it Hetchinger? They're the twin, or I think they were twins, right? Emperors.
You like Joseph Quinn's job? Really? Okay.
They were so fucking weird. Like they were they were so weird, and I wasn't expecting this like lunacy from the people in charge. And they're young, so it makes it look like they're like almost kids, and they're crazy, and I was kind of digging it, where they were like legit crazy, and they call themselves gods almost too. I think
that's just how Romans are.
Yeah. But they took it to head like hard. I gotta say, like, I really enjoyed them. I did not expect Joseph Quinn to have like a big role, which he really didn't, but those guys kind of came off. Anytime they were on screen, I knew some crazy stuff was going to happen, and it usually did. Denzel being there just added everything to everyone. He made everyone else look so much better. He made Paul Mescal look better. He made Joseph and Fred way better. You know what I mean? Like he was great with Connie Nielsen. He was the guy in this one for sure. But the acting was good, and then the action was just so crazy over the top. Crazy over the top. Like they put water with sharks in the Coliseum. Makes no sense whatsoever. Like absolutely no sense. But it was so awesome. Like them having
where did they get the sharks from?
Where did they get the sharks from? Yeah. It's not you can just grab a leash.
Where did they get the sharks from? Yeah. Where did they get the sharks from? How did they fill the Coliseum up with water that quickly?
Yeah. It is. But I didn't care because I'm like, it was cool. It was cool. That's all I cared about. But yeah, and visually it looked awesome too. So yeah. So,
I pretty much say you're right. But I thought Fred did a great job because the idea of you realize he had syphilis, right?
Yeah.
So that's why he acted the way he acted, like a child, and the brain, the mental problems, and all that stuff. And I'll imagine how many. I looked it up. There's at least 4 emperors that had syphilis that sat on the throne. So like this is not something that's just made up. They did a great job in their research and trying to figure that out.
What about dislikes, Brand Man?
Okay, here we go.
It's the rest of the Notebook.
Exactly. It's the rest of
it really is. So if you're gonna for a sequel that Ridley Scott insisted on making 24 years after the fact, I think the first movie is so iconic that a sequel was always going to be in its shadow, and you can't help but compare it. So if you're gonna make a sequel to a movie that didn't really need one, you better bring it in terms of story. And this was it was pretty much, if I'm being honest, it just kind of seemed like a blow by blow redo of the original, or as I call it, Gladiator Light, Diet Gladiator. I wasn't really invested in Lucius's revenge story, whereas with Maximus, I very much was. His wife and kids were caught in the. His wife and his son were innocent bystanders, and whereas Lucius's wife was she was a soldier, so she kind of knew the risks. So I couldn't really, get too invested on his revenge quest. Some of the CG was questionable at times, specifically the baboons or the chimps. A lot of the battle sequences, like the one we just mentioned with the sharks, it was just it just really seemed conceived with the mindset. It kind of operated on Zack Snyder or Michael Bay logic, and it was just because it looked cool, and nothing beyond that.
I'm actually looking up. There were water games in in Coliseum.
Was there?
Yeah,
really?
No. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
okay. But plus, just in the original, I was actively invested in the character of Maximus. I really wanted him to get his revenge. I was rooting for him to get his revenge from beginning to end. Whereas in this movie, it just kind of, I just kind of felt obligated because the movie told me to. And Denzel was fine. It was probably one of his lesser performances from him, as far as I'm concerned. He was fine. He's probably the best actor in the movie, but I've seen much better performances from him. I thought the final battle was a cop out because we're talking about two opponents with at least like a frigging 40-year age difference between the two of them. So of course, so of course it was going to end up the way it did. The movie just seemed like it was really going through the motions and just kind of getting by on the goodwill of the first one, and you could kind of tell Ridley Scott's frigging senility in this, and he was just kind of going through the motions. He made this and was coasting purely off the goodwill of the first movie to me.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily agree with that, but some of the stuff I do agree with you. So.
Okay, I know you do.
Yeah, some of the stuff I definitely agree with. I mean, so I looked it up. It said sea battles definitely mock sea battles took place as early as 880 CE. So or AE, whatever. So it definitely happened. So the sea battles definitely did happen. They had mock sea battles all the time, nautical battles in the Coliseum all the time. So that's not something they just made up. Okay. It's still Rome, so that you can get to water. There's things around. I don't know whether you got to salt water, but whatever. It is what it is. As far as my dislikes, I think I agree with Brandon. The story itself was very thin. Yeah, I mean, very thin. Like, come on, like what? You had all this time, and this is what you came up with. I think the acting was a lot better than the actual story what they gave you. And I thought Denzel, his character was more important because the rest of it didn't really hold water. Like it didn't make any sense overall. And you're like, okay, so no one else figured out that might be Lucius. No one else thought that the timeline of any of that stuff made sense. No one kept an eye on him. She didn't figure out where he was at all. All that stuff was kind of really weird. They did the same Roman army outside the gates, and no emperor figured that out. Maybe we should be paying attention where the Roman armies are. We should know where they're based. Like that, it just didn't make sense. And the details just weren't there. And then they had other characters that they pulled out thin air, and we were supposed to care about these other characters. Whatever. That was weird. It was just weird. I would probably want more detail about Denzel's character. They kind of says, "Oh, I used to be a slave here." At the end of the movie, like they threw it as a throw-in line, right? That I didn't necessarily like. I thought that was just weird. But at the end of the day, I realized what it was. I know what it is. It's a movie to make you think about Gladiator again. You're gonna bring all the stars you can to put in it to give it validation. It's gonna make a shit ton of money. That's what it is. And if you can enjoy the action scenes, you can enjoy the Gladiator battles inside the Coliseum, then you're gonna enjoy the movie.
Yeah. I'm gonna start off with what Mama Bear's saying right here. Zimmerman composure. Like the music is what made the first one like give it the epicness. The music was I feel like off in this one. Now that was like a big thing with me with it.
Wasn't also the film like the way they shot it, because the first one was almost like a gray tint to it, like it made it feel older, like an old ancient Roman times, and this was just like a regular 4K camera, like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, just the way, like the way it's shot was off, like it just felt like a little off-putting when you compare it to the first one. And then the other thing is like Denzel was great in it. Wasn't his greatest performance. It was probably slightly above average Denzel
it was
kind
a thin
of
character, right?
It was, but that exactly, it's a thin character, so it's like and there's only so much you could do with it, and all of this is just very thin. It relies heavily on the first one with the story and everything like that. And like you have to know like oh, Lucius grabs the sand because his dad did it, like all this shit, like I feel like
I'm
he's
going
even
to wear
trying to
his
talk.
uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just randomly hanging up on the wall in there. Like, okay.
And then they had to say, oh yeah, that was his daddy, right? Because they never discussed it in the first movie. We all assumed, but they never really discussed it. Like they had to pull that out. I was like, all right,
yeah.
whatever.
So we're gonna get into our ratings now. Later, never. Now means you gotta go check it out right now. Later means you wait till it's at home streaming. It never means just skip it altogether. Brandman, what are you giving Gladiator 2?
Never. And that's really because it's just basically a beat by beat redo of the original, like I said, in which case I could just put on the original because it's much more superior. This is a movie that did not need to be made. You could tell it was just kind of coasting on the nostalgia factor on the first one, right down to not only repeating the exact same plot line of a soldier whose loved one was killed, him getting captured and sold into slavery, and him going on a revenge mission.
That's how they got gladiators. So that part.
It doesn't matter. You're doing a sequel 24 years later and insisting on making one do something new. I could have just went back and watched the original, and I kind of wish I did. It's not necessarily a horrible movie, and it's definitely not the worst movie I've ever seen. I just don't need to watch it again ever.
There's no way it's a never movie, man. Because I've seen ever movies. It's not that. Just grading on what it is. It's a later. It's a streaming, pretty good movie. You could literally, if you want to go see the movie theater, it's cool. It's real. It looks really cool. The buckets of popcorn things are really cool, and all that stuff. The acting is a lot better than the characters they give. It's almost like they came with a script. Like it was like this thin, and then they're like, okay, make 2 hours of a movie, and they had to come up with their own backstory. And literally, the characters are probably the actors are probably the best part of all the movie. They created the characters. They gave you some feeling for the character. But at the end of the day, if I was just the movie just by itself, I'm looking at the movie, it was all right. It was okay. And that means it's just a later. I don't need you to stop what you're doing there right now and spend money, but people are going to. It's probably going to make somewhere like $600-700 million.
All right, so we got a never, a later, and I'm actually going to give this one a now. Not because the plot is great, because the plot is beat for beat, exactly what the first one was. You go see this in the theater because it's insane freaking action with great graphics, and the best way to see it is on the big screen. So if you just want kind of like dumb fun, seeing people fight monkeys, people riding rhinoceroses, and like this the wild crazy shit, man. That's our thoughts and a review for Gladiator 2. Yeah, if you are watching on replay, leave a comment and let us know what you guys think about it. If you are watching live, stick around because we're going to get into your comments right now.